Welcome to Imperfect Genius, the podcast that provides technical advice on effectively navigating the business development journey and offers advice on building successful careers in the tech industry. I'm your host, Rachel Foster, a tech professional, educator, and entrepreneur. Okay, folks, it's time. I said in the previous episode that I was delaying doing the update on my trademark journey because it wasn't done. Well, spoiler alert, it's still not done, and I don't know when it's going to be done. So there's going to be a part 3 that I mentioned. So last year I did an episode called Undo Hard Lessons in Trademarking. It was in season 1. I think it was episode 17. It was published sometime, I think in the fall of last year, maybe it was late summer. Um, and in that episode, I talk about what happened leading up to me filing my trademark application. And honestly, and it was such a big deal because there was just so much drama that happened. And I was like, oh yeah, this is definitely, this is lessons learned. I'm going to do a podcast episode on this. It's going to be great. And I thought that would be the end of the story, and the next thing would be, "Hey, yay, I've got my trademark." No, that is not what happened. So again, like this is I'm just going to consider this to be part 2, and hopefully part 3 will be the end. We'll see. So again, if you want to hear, I'll give you a little bit of background here, but if you want to hear the whole story, I think it was like a 45-minute episode because I had my assistant producer Emma Bergen on that one. So there was she had questions and there was a lot of back and forth. So if you want to hear the full story of what happened leading up to even filing my trademark application, again, that was episode 17 in season 1, and the title of it is Undo Hard Lessons in Trademarking. The TLDR is I originally started in August of 2023 with this plan for this new brand that I was going to do, and it had a completely different name at the time. And I did what I thought was my due diligence for looking up the name before I ever hired a trademark attorney. Originally, I thought I was going to do the whole thing on my own. And then I spoke to somebody who had a trademark and had a podcast, and she had recommended that. She was just like, it was so hard, it almost broke her. And she really recommended that I get a trademark attorney. And so anyway, so that's how I ended up getting a trademark attorney. And then from August to December was this whole process of, it's a long story. Listen to the episode. But basically, I thought I had this name locked down, and I had started creating all of these assets. I had created podcast covers and all this other stuff. And then I find out, like, at the 11th hour that nope, I can't use that name. And so I had to come up with a new name, and that was a whole process. And the application was actually filed on December 31st, 2023. So I thought I was like, whoa, that was just a lot. And so the person who told me had recommended to me that I hire a trademark attorney, and she was like, the process almost broke her. I legitimately thought that what I had gone through was the part that almost broke her. But I now know that what I'm going through now is the part that probably is going to break me. So let's talk about what has happened since the application was filed. And I now have 3 pending trademark applications. And I feel like in order to explain this story, I need to give you some background. And let me say, for the record, I am not a trademark attorney. I am not an attorney of any type. I am not a trademark expert. This is my second business, but this is my first time going through the trademark process because my previous business was a franchise. So all of the trademarking and all that kind of stuff, branding and all that, was done by the franchisor. I didn't have to worry about that. It was like, buying a McDonald's. You don't have to worry about what your colors are, somebody stealing, creating a burger stand called McDonald's or anything like that. So I never had to go through this with my previous business. So this is my first time going through the process. And again, a little bit of a TLDR. There's so much I would do differently. We'll talk. Let me talk through what has happened, and then we'll talk about what I would do differently, and if I would do it at all, which not really sure. But I'll talk about that at the end. First, let me give you some basic information. And again, I'm not a trademark attorney. This is just my understanding of these things. So when you're filing a trademark, there are a couple of very key decisions that you have to make. The first is whether or not you're filing for words, mark, or words in mark. Now, let me explain what those are. I'm going to use a famous example that should be relatable to most people, which is Nike. So, Nike, the company name, I'm pretty sure, I don't know if that's their corporate name, but Nike, the company, is a brand. Their swoosh is their mark, their trademark. Like it's a image that they have trademarked. They also have, I think, "Just Do It," which is a tagline that is trademarked. But let's just use Nike as an example. So you can file a trademark for the word Nike as your company name in sporting goods or whatever. You could file a trademark for the Nike swoosh, for example, just the mark, or you can file words in mark where you always have the swoosh with the word Nike. So it's words, mark, or words in mark. And so that was the first decision that had to be made. And originally I thought, well, words in mark, because my logo is the words Imperfect Genius. The only thing that's special about it is that the G in genius is a stylized G that's meant to look like a wireless mouse. Um, anyway, so I was like, well, words in mark. But then I was told that, well, if you do that, then you can only ever use them together. Like you can't, like if somebody just wants to use your name, Imperfect Genius, in text or like on the name of a course or something like that, you can't claim that it's trademark infringement because you didn't trademark just the words Imperfect Genius. You trademark that specific stylized logo that's got that G in it. So I was like, okay, so the recommendation that I got was to do a trademark application for the words Imperfect Genius, and do a trademark application for the mark, the logo of just that stylized G, because I use that. It's my favicon. Like if you go to my website and you ever notice when you're looking at your like let's say you got a bunch of tabs open, Chrome tabs open on your browser, and you'll see like next to each tab, like there's a little teeny tiny logo that represents whatever that website is that you're on. Well, my little G is my favicon. That's the little logo that you'll see, a little icon that you'll see next to my tab if you're on my website. Similarly, I use that same logo, that icon, for my profile picture for all my social media and lots of other places. So mostly I only use it whenever I need to limit the size of my logo. Like, a lot of times you can't use a rectangular logo, you have to use a square logo, like for example, for profile pictures. And so I use it in some of those places. So filed a trademark application for the words Imperfect Genius and for that favicon logo of just the G, the stylized G that looks like a wireless mouse. So that was two different trademark applications. I'll talk about the third one in a minute, but so that was two different ones. So I had one trademark application for words, one trademark application for mark. So that was the first decision I had to make. We're going to talk about we're going to talk about the implications of that decision in a minute. I want to give you a couple more important definitions and decisions that you have to make when you're deciding a trademark. So the second decision you have to make is what trademark classes are you going to file in? And there are lots of, I don't even know how many there are, but there are lots of them. And so, for example, for me, I'll tell you which trademark classes I ended up filing in, and deep regret here, by the way, just lots and lots of regret. And I'll tell you why I filed in all these. But so I filed in a class 41, which is educational services, class 42, which is computer project management and services, class 35, which is business consultancy and business development services, class 9, which is downloadable electronic publications. And so that's like curriculum, booklets, workbooks, journals. For some reason or another, that category also includes laptop covers and laptop bags. I think that more than the workbooks is the reason I chose that class. Stationery and printed material, so like journals and things like that, and hats and clothing. So, I didn't, okay, I didn't mention stationery is 16 and hats and clothing are 25. So I filed in 1, 2, 3, 41, 42, 35, 9, 16, and 25. 6 different classes that I filed in. Now, why did I do that? Because originally I was just going to file in, I was trying to decide, that's the thing, I was trying to decide between business consultancy and computer project management services. But then I was like, educational services kind of applies too. And so I was trying to decide. And then again, on the advice of counsel, I feel like I'm like sitting on trial. On the advice of counsel, my attorney, it was recommended that I file in all three for lots of different reasons. Like this one covers this type of work and this covers this type of work, et cetera, et cetera. The problem with filing in all of these different classes, and I'm going to talk about 9, 16, and 25 in a minute, but the problem with filing in all these different classes is they all have different meanings, and you have to show proof in all of these different areas, which this is where my nightmare begins. So with 9, 16, and 25, which were the downloadable electronic publications, stationery and printed materials, and hats and clothing, I was like, yes, someday, sure, but it's not something I need to file right away because this was at the beginning of my brand, and I'm going to say that's where my first big regret is that I wish I had waited until the brand was more mature and I had a clearer vision of what I wanted to do with these trademarks because lots of wasted time and money. So yeah, that's my first big regret. I wish I had waited until the brand was more mature. Now, of course, the downside is if things have taken off like, really well and somebody could have stolen it and then I wouldn't have been able to, or I would have had to have a fight on my hands to prove that I had it first and all of that. So yeah, there's that. But so the reason that I filed in these additional classes, this downloadable publications, the stationery, the hats and clothing, etc., and there was actually more that were recommended to me, but again, it costs money to file in each one of these classes. You have to pay a fee for each one of these classes. Plus, for me, and like I would assume it's the same for all trademark attorneys, you're not just paying the fee to the USPTO, the US Patent and Trademark Office. You're also paying a fee to your attorney for each one of these classes. So it's like, each time you add one of these things on, it's an exponential increase in your expenses. But I was told that, well, even if you're not planning to use it right away, you want to make sure you've got that category. If you ever plan to do it in the future, you want to make sure you've got that category locked down so that, like, if you just launched and you just picked, for example, educational services and you don't file in these other categories, then, maybe your brand takes off or your name, goes viral, whatever. And then now somebody's like, ooh, I'm going to start doing hats with that on it, or I'm going to start doing, computer consulting services because you didn't file under computer consulting services, you filed under educational services. So it was like a preventative, like it was suggested to me as a preventative. And with regard to showing evidence, because like I say, you have to show evidence of use in commerce, or sales in commerce for each one of these classes. I was told, so this is the third thing that I saw. The first thing was trademark types. The second thing was trademark classes. The third important thing you need to know is you can file current use and intent to use. So I was told that, well, you can file for current use for like educational services or actually business consultancy was the one that I would have done current use because I was currently doing business consulting. Same with computer project management services. So I was told you can file current use if you can currently prove that you were using that name in this particular area. But if you're not currently using that name in a specific area, for example, hats and clothing, then you can say intent to use. Now, and I was like, okay, fine. So intent to use. And so to be fair to my attorney, I feel like it was explained to me at the time, but there was so much overwhelming information at the time that it just didn't stick in my brain. I feel like I was told that if you file intent to use, you will eventually have to prove use in that category. But a thing that I don't remember, again, it was probably told to me, but there was so much information at the time that I was doing this. And again, it's my first time ever doing it. I just don't specifically remember this. But the thing that I did not know is if you file intent to use, you can't close your trademark application until you switch over to current use. So, for example, for hats and clothing, I filed intent to use and I got an email. So this is where, this is part of the nightmare story. So let's use the hats and clothing, the stationery and printed materials and the hats and the clothing, for example. So I filed intent to use for that. And I got an email in May. It was like, congratulations, you're for this is just for the logo. We got to go back to the words. I got to tell you the nightmare story for the words too, but let's just talk about the mark, the logo, just the G. So I got an email from my attorney's office, and it's like, congratulations, your logo, your mark was approved in the whatever class. I think it was like computer project management services, or maybe it was business consulting. One of those, so like whatever my core I don't remember which one was the core class that I filed in, but I got the congratulations, it was approved in that category. And I was like, now in order to complete, according to the fit, well, technically, it's not in order to complete the trademark application, because for some reason or another, this is different for the words, but for the mark, for some reason or another, there was actually two applications. I think it was I don't know if it was a mistake or for some reason or another, there was an application specifically for whatever that main category was, which I think was business consulting and development services. And there was a second application just for the mark, just for the intent to use. So there's an application for the current use, and there was a separate, no, feel like that it had to be that way. And there was a separate application for the intent to use. And the intent to use was the stationery and printed materials and hats and clothing. So I got a congratulations, your current use application for this logo has been approved. Now you need to prove use for this logo in these other categories that you initially filed as intent to use. And if you don't provide evidence that you are currently, selling, this is not currently in use in commerce, then you have to pay an extension fee per class. So you either have to pay more money. So you have three choices. You can either provide evidence, you can ask for an extension and pay the fee for an extension, or you can abandon the trademark application. And you're just like, no, okay, never mind. So I didn't want to throw away the money the money and the time I'd already spent. I didn't want to pay an extension fee in each class, because again, it's not just the extension fee to the USPTO, but I also have to pay an extension fee to my lawyer. So I didn't want to pay fees, and I didn't want to abandon the application. So all of a sudden, I'm like, I guess I need a shop now. I guess I need to be selling hats and clothing and printed material. So this was not something that I had really the bandwidth to do, but I was given, when I got the email, I think I had a deadline of the end of June. So like I had like basically 30 days to do this. So I had to basically stop everything that I was doing to go and create this evidence, create a shop to sell this stuff. And that was a whole other nightmare, because so when I selected my platform for my website hosting platform and partner, e-commerce was not top of mind, because that is not primarily what I do. Like if I just was specifically selling things, I might have done like a Shopify site or a WooCommerce site or something that is designed specifically for e-commerce. Instead, I had different needs. So I chose a platform and that was based on the needs that I had. I did make sure that it included e-commerce, because I thought I might be doing some selling some digital products and some things like that later, gift cards, whatever. So I did make sure that it included e-commerce, but it was not top of mind. It was not, I didn't look at every single e-commerce feature. So when I went to go set up this shop, all of a sudden I realized, well, I like just for the e-commerce stuff, I just did like the basics. So first thing I figured out was this basic level that I was on, I couldn't charge taxes. But meanwhile, I'm using a print on demand vendor. Meanwhile, they're charged, like in order for me to provide the t-shirt or whatever it is, I have to pay them to create it and ship it, and they're charging me tax in every state, but I'm not charging tax to the customer, so I'm losing money basically. So I'm like, well, I need to charge tax, but this basic level that I was on for e-commerce was like, yeah, you can't do taxes on this level, which is crazy, because like, who doesn't have to do taxes? So why are you gonna charge me extra just to have to be able to charge taxes so I don't lose money? So I had to upgrade my platform, I had to upgrade my service just so that I could charge taxes and shipping and some other things. Because again, I'm also being charged for shipping, but I couldn't charge it on to the customer. So I had to do all these upgrades just to be able to sell this thing and not lose money, sell these things and not lose money. And I had to create this thing. I had to create this shop out of nothing, out of thin air. And again, this was not what was on my priority list of things to do this summer. Like I had other things that I needed to do. Plus I wanted to take a vacation. I didn't end up getting a vacation. So I had to go through all of this work to create this thing. And so I go through all this and I meet the deadline of submitting the form through my the account portal for my attorney. And then I get a follow-up email that's like, okay, well, now that you've submitted this, this evidence, let's, plan a meeting to talk about it and review it. And this is when I figured out that the deadline that was given to me was arbitrary for them because it wasn't necessarily a USPTO. I should have gone and looked at my, because I can have access. I should have gone and looked at my USPTO application. It wasn't a USPTO deadline. It was my attorney's deadline. So I'm rushing to meet this arbitrary deadline. I meet the deadline. And then when I go to book the meeting for a follow up with my attorney to review this evidence that I've put together, it's like her calendar is like booked out for a month. So like I have to wait, like I think it was 3 weeks. So I have to wait 3 weeks just to follow up. So I was like, wait a minute, I was like killing myself to meet this deadline. And it turns out it's just an arbitrary deadline. So anyway, so meet with the attorney. And the gist of what she said, again, another TLDR, the gist of what she said was basically, oh, I'm sorry, sweetie, you didn't understand the assignment. It's like, you did it wrong. And mind you, there was a video, like, in this form that you have to fill out where you provide the evidence. She had a video explaining some things, but there was a lot of nuance that wasn't in that video. So there were things that, she's explaining some things and I'm like, well, that doesn't apply to me. I don't have a physical store. I have an online store. So like just little things that I thought, well, okay, that doesn't apply to me. So I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. So let's go back to the Nike example. So imagine you've got a t-shirt with the Nike swoosh on it. It's on the front or whatever. And you're Nike, you're trying to provide that as evidence that you're selling this thing in the marketplace. Like this is something that is available for consumers to buy. The swoosh on the front of the t-shirt, what I've been told, the swoosh on the front of the t-shirt is not in and of itself proof of your trademark. It's not evidence for your trademark because the thing on the front of the shirt is considered the message, not the brand, which I'm like, why can't the message also be the brand? So my point is like I had t-shirts that had my logo on them, my podcast cover, some other t-shirts. But so I had t-shirts that had my logo, that had the words Imperfect Genius, that had the G, because we're going to come back to the whole issue with the words in a minute. So I created all these things so that I thought I could do it just once. I didn't want to have to go back and do this again for the other applications. So I wanted to try to make sure I was covering all my bases. But it didn't matter. Like I had all these different variations of t-shirts that I thought would cover all of the different applications. And none of it mattered because apparently what's on the front of the t-shirt is just considered the message. And so in the video where she was talking about how you could provide evidence, for example, for clothing, she gives an example of hang tags. And I'm like, again, again, back to my Nike example. So let's say you're at a sporting goods store and you're shopping for t-shirts and there's a whole, like a row of Nike t-shirts. So there might be Nike t-shirts that have different stuff messages on the front, just do it, or the swoosh, or the Nike, or whatever. But if there's like a little tag that's got like the size and maybe some other information with what the material is and whatever, and it might have the Nike on it, that hang tag is what defines the brand. So no matter what the message is on the shirt, it's the hang tag that says this is a Nike shirt. Mind you, it doesn't matter the fact that it's got Nike on the front and it's got the Nike swoosh or whatever. It's the hang tag that makes it a brand. And so I'm like, but that doesn't apply to me. I sell online. I have no need for hang tags. Like I'm not going to like create hang tags just so that I can get because I'm like, what am I going to do? Buy these things and ship them to the warehouse so they can attach it to a t-shirt that I don't need. Like I'm like, I'm not going to create things I don't need just so that I can prove that I'm selling this stuff. So I was able to get around that one with, how like if you look on the inside of your t-shirt where your tag should be, sometimes if you've ever seen it, like, on the inside of the shirt, you'll see a logo or the name of the brand or whatever. So like I was able to get around it by doing that. Now, mind you, that meant I had to change what I was selling in the shop that I had created, like all that work I'd done over the summer. It wasn't wasted, but I had to like go and modify all that work that I'd done. So there was that. And then so that was just for clothing. Mind you, I don't know what I would have done for hat. Luckily, hats and clothing are the same category because I solved the problem with the t-shirts and you only have to provide one example in each category. With hats, like there is no inside, like in terms of with my print on demand vendor, there's no way to have a thing on the inside for the hat. Like, so again, I would have had to just go buy some hang tags and ship them to a warehouse so they could attach them to these hats when they ship them out. Like, it was insane. So luckily, I was able to cover hats and clothing with just the modifications to the t-shirt. Now, for stationery and printed materials, I had two things I had in that category were stickers and journals. Again, luckily I was able to fix the issue with notebook. This I said journals, but I meant notebooks. I was able to fix the issue with the notebook because, again, the sticker solution was going to be another crazy, unnecessary thing I was going to have to create just in order to satisfy this trademark evidence. So the example that I'll use for what I had to do with the notebook is I'll use Hallmark. So you know how you buy a Hallmark card, you got the message on the front, you got whatever's on the inside. But if you flip it over on the back, like the bottom, the little lower part of the bottom, it might say Hallmark and have like the little Hallmark crown. You've probably seen those. That again, that crown and the word Hallmark on the back of it is what indicates the brand, not the message, nothing on the front, nothing on the inside. It's the little thing on the back. So I had created these notebooks that had my logo on the front cover. Again, didn't count. It's my logo, it's my name, but that doesn't count. That's the message. That's not the brand. So I had to modify it so that the back cover of the journals have the logo there. And I just realized, actually, just now as I'm talking this through, I'm going to have to fix that because right now it only has the logo. It doesn't have the words Imperfect Genius, which, again, that is a separate application. So when I need to go provide evidence of stationery for the words Imperfect Genius, I'm going to need something that's got the words on the back. And I just realized I got to go update the notebooks. Anyway, it's a never ending nightmare. So that's all the stuff that I had to go through just for the logo. Keep in mind, that's one of my applications. My other application, so I've got two other applications. My other application is the words Imperfect Genius. That's the biggest nightmare. You think that everything I just described was a nightmare. No, the words Imperfect Genius has been a nightmare because I've been battling with. I'm trying to decide if this is not disparaging. This is just facts that I'm stating. I'm battling with Apple about that because they have they have a trademark on the Genius bar. Yeah, and so I'm trying to be very political. I'm not trying to get sued here, uh, because especially in this current world of corporate madness. Um, I'm just going to tell you what they said. I'm not going to add any color commentary. You can fill in your own blanks. But basically, they felt like putting the word imperfect in front of genius was disparaging to their trademark, which is Genius Bar, separate from Imperfect Genius and completely separate set of things that we're selling. And it was only in one of the categories that they were fighting me. It was in the computer project management services class that they were fighting me on that one. But it's like me against this huge tech corporation. So you can just imagine, it's like it was this what's the I can't remember what's the famous if somebody's yelling at their computer. What's the David and Goliath. I'm like, what's the famous myth? Anyway, it's like David and Goliath, but except where Goliath just stomps on David. Like it's just anyway, so we ended up there was lots of back and forth. And again, there's attorney fees, there's time, there's all kinds of drama and all kinds of stuff. Like it's just back and forth. And we were trading like what if I had to changing the description of the way that I worded the trademark and all this back and forth and back and forth. And then finally um there was there was a recommendation that their legal department made that I didn't love, but it wasn't the worst. And I still wanted to keep fighting, but I have my uncle has been in the music business for a really long time, and I called him up just to sort of like get his advice because he's dealt with this kind of stuff, obviously for intellectual property rights for music and things like that. And he was like, "It's Apple. You can't. You got to let this one go." He was like, "You can't fight it." He's like, and he gave me some examples where he actually owned the trademark for, or he owned the rights for something, and still he had to like spend thousands and thousands of dollars to fight somebody who didn't even have the right to it, but just to fight it in court. So he was just basically like, just let it go, because you don't have the money to fight them. Like you're gonna run out of money and they're gonna win anyway, so you might as well just let it go. um So that one, it's still pending. I don't know where we agreed to some change in the language and refiled, and I don't even know where that one stands. So that's one of the things I was waiting on in terms of recording this episode. I was like, wait, let me see where that ends up. I don't even know where that one stands. And so I again, like, as I was just talking, I'm like, oh no, I've just realized that the stationery is like not going to work for when I have to prove that, because I filed in all those same classes for the words Imperfect Genius, so I have to provide same level of evidence for each one of those categories. And I don't even, I'm not even think, I don't want to think about it right now, because I'm like, all of the places that I'm gonna have to go see about changing to make sure that it matches whatever the trademark evidence is. I'm gonna depress myself. I don't want to talk about that. I don't want to think about that right now. So that's what's going on with the words Imperfect Genius. And and it's curious because, like I say, my logo it says Imperfect Genius, and it's the words imperfect and then the icon and then genius, the G icon, and then technically genius. Um so I'm not even sure. There's so many places where it's both the words and the mark. I don't even know, like, even on my website, like, I don't even know that that will be sufficient, because it's not just the words by themselves, and I'm gonna have to provide evidence of just the words by themselves. Okay, I'm working myself into a tizzy. Let me finish telling the story and wrap this up before I get too upset. Okay, and then there's a third there is a third trademark, which completely separate from the name and the icon, which is there's a series of courses that I'm planning on writing. One of the reasons I'm behind on writing this courses is because I'm doing all this other things that are not, again, that were not my priority, but things that I need to do. Otherwise, I lose money or I have to pay more money, et cetera, et cetera. But there's a series of courses that I'm planning on doing called Be Your Own Webmaster. And so I wanted to trademark that, because I mentioned it on a podcast episode, and before I even published that podcast episode, I went and filed the trademark application, because I was like, I want to make sure nobody tries to steal that, just because they heard it. And my attorney was on vacation at the time, that, like, literally I was recording the episode, and it occurred to me right after I said the name of the series in the episode, like as soon as I finished recording, I was like, oh man, I got to file a trademark application for that. And I reached out to my attorney. She was on vacation. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to figure out how to do it on my own. Actually, no, I didn't try to do it on my own. I tried to do it through Rocket Lawyer. That was, again, another regret. Anyway, so I did get it filed, but it was not done ideally. And so it was kind of a mess. And the USPTO, well, they rejected it for, in my opinion, a dumb reason. So they rejected the application because there was an existing mark called Be Your Own Master. And they were like, well, it's the same thing. I'm like, no, master and webmaster are two different nouns in the dictionary. Webmaster is a very specific thing in tech. Like, this is a tech brand, and a webmaster is a very specific thing in tech. And so, anyways, I'm trying to argue that point. But the attorney that I was working with just basically ghosted me, like, was not getting back to me at all. So then I had to try to get the whole thing moved over, so that my existing trademark attorney took over the whole thing. And that was the whole thing. I had to pay for her. I had already paid to file the thing with the other attorney that ghosted me, but then I had to pay to move it all over to her, and for her to take it over, and then her to respond to the office action, and blah, 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 blah. And so that's another one that is still pending, I would say, because she wrote up a whole thing about, because the Be Your Own Master, the person who has that trademark, has basically done nothing with it in like X number of years, and I think it's about to expire. So there's all these reasons why theoretically I should be granted the thing for Be Your Own Webmaster, again, because webmaster is different than master. Anyway, but that was another one that's still, I don't even know where that's going to go. And so I'm like, well, do I create these courses with a different name, or do I create it with that name? Like, because I don't even know that I'm going to be able to use that name. So it's a matter of, like, do I create the courses and never mention the name of the course in any of my recordings or any of my texts, so that way, if it needs to change, then I can change it easily? Or do I like, it's like, I'm just like, I don't even know that I want to go down that road. I feel like I could create the content without ever mentioning what the name of the course is, and just slap the name of the course in on the end. I don't know. Like it's just, again, I'm working myself into a frenzy. This is my nightmare. So this is a good point to talk about, lessons learned, regrets, et cetera, et cetera. So, the question is, if I had it to do all over again, if I had it to do all over again, what would I do? Or would I do it? What would I do differently? What would I do the same? Honestly, I don't know. I understand. I fully understand the importance of trademark. So one of the examples that I use, my attorney uses when she does like different classes and stuff, and I've used it when I was explaining stuff to other people, um, is um, is the Black Lives Matter movement. Apparently, sometime after Black Lives Matter became, a huge big thing. I mean, not that it wasn't from the beginning, but when it was a hashtag on social media and all that, when it became very popular and people were wanting to do T-shirts and things like that, the actual founders of Black Lives Matter tried to go, and I don't know this as firsthand. This is what I've heard, I think, from my attorney. They tried to go and trademark the term, the hashtag Black Lives Matter, but it was too late. Somebody else had already trademarked it. Somebody who did not create it, who did not create the movement, had already trademarked it and was selling T-shirts and doing whatever under, that brand name. And the people who actually founded it couldn't do it. So I understand trying to thread the needle between, you're just early in the beginning and it's too soon and you don't have the money and the time to worry about a trademark versus waiting too late and then not being able to do it. But I really wish that I had waited until my brand was more established, a little bit more mature. Again, it might have been too late. Somebody might have already stolen it from me. Who knows? I don't know. I don't know. But here's what I do know for sure. If I had it to do all over again, I would make very different decisions on those things that we talked about. So, like the trademark types, the trademark classes, and the current use versus intent to use, those three things, I would have made different decisions. I would not have done words and marks separately for what I'm doing, because again, because my main logo is the words and the mark, I would have just done words and mark. I just would have done one application that was words and mark and not tried to separate them and do two separate applications, because I had to go. That was another thing where I had to go create something that I didn't necessarily need to exist. I had to go create things that just had the logo on it without the words Imperfect Genius. And I had to create things that had just the words Imperfect Genius that didn't have the logo, so that I could keep those types of evidence separate for the different trademark applications, which was just work that I didn't need to do. Like, it was just extra work that I didn't need to do. So I would definitely make a different decision there. In terms of the trademark classes, I would pick the bare bones, very minimum I needed to get started. And I would circle back on the other classes later. Like, yeah, sure. I want to some days sell t-shirts, but I'm not a t-shirt vendor. Like, I am just a person who has a brand and is like, oh, it would be nice if I also had t-shirts with my brand name on them. But I am not a t-shirt maker. Like that is not my primary business. So for me to have to go create, I'll like go set up a whole shop that I didn't need to exist for my purposes, and have to do things with this brand that's separate from the message on the front and the hang tags and like that was just like more work than I needed, because it has nothing to do with my primary business. It has nothing to do with my primary business. I am not a t-shirt seller. Well, I am now, but that was not the business that I was trying to be in. So I would definitely not file in all of those classes up front, because then, the bill's going to come due in terms of providing the evidence. And then that's for that same reason, the current use versus intent to use. I would have only filed in the bare minimum classes that I needed, and only current use. I would not have filed any intent to use until I actually planned on using something. Like literally, if I'm like, okay, now I'm ready to start selling t-shirts, then I would have put in an application intent to use. And, once the t-shirt, that would give me time, because by the way, this process takes forever. I mentioned to you, I originally filed it December 31st, 2023. So we're coming up on 2 years, right? So this process takes a long time. So the minute you decide, oh, I think I want to sell t-shirts, you can put in the application for intent to use, and you're going to have, a good 10 months before they even look at the application. So you got some time to go now, set up that shop and do it the right way, because now you know for sure that you're going to be doing that. So if I had it to do again, I would definitely only file current use, only file in the very bare bones minimum classes that I needed to file in, and I would do intent to use when I was ready to do those. And the whole thing with there's nothing I could have done about, big giant tech company wanting to come crush me because I happen to be a tech person and I happen to be using a word that they use in their brand, which is also a word in the dictionary. I mean, you don't own it, by the way. Um, so there's nothing I could have done about that. Like I mean, there's just nothing I could have done about that because there's no possible way to avoid every word that every big brand is using. Like you go crazy. Trust me, that was the first part, the first episode, the, hard lessons in trademarking, trying to come up with a name that didn't have some sort of conflict. And I thought I finally found one until boom, I got an opposition from this huge tech company. It's like, no, thank you. You can't use that. You can't use that name. So I sound like I'm very anti-trademark, don't I? Honestly, I might be a little bit right now. I do understand the value. I really do. I just I don't know that it's worth it. I mean, we'll see. The one thing I will say that I discovered along this process, is that I discovered that from an accounting perspective, that a trademark is an asset in the business that is depreciable because it costs so much freaking money to do this thing. You can actually take that money and consider it an asset in the business, and you can depreciate it over time. And if you sell the business, you can actually use that to increase the value of the business. So I mean, I'm not saying, I was never saying that trademarks didn't have a value. I'm just saying I'm a tiny little brand, and it's just a lot of headache, a lot of work, a lot of money, a lot of time for somebody who is just starting off, with a brand new brand. Like, I just really wish I had waited. So that's my story. I feel like because I didn't write a script for this episode. I was just like, I'm just gonna just talk, and we'll see how it goes. So hopefully this was coherent. I would love to hear your comments. You can DM me on social media at Ask Imperfect Genius, specifically Instagram and LinkedIn. I am on Facebook. I need to really get active on Facebook. I just don't do anything on Facebook right now. And the other ones, I've got the handles, but I've got a handle on TikTok, but I don't do anything on TikTok. So again, Instagram, LinkedIn, you at Ask Imperfect Genius, you can send me a message. If you listen to us on the Alive podcast app, you can add a comment. I'll reply. Also, because this gets pushed out to YouTube, you can add comments on YouTube. I'll reply there as well. If you're a woman of color who's running your own business and you would love to like commiserate with other business owners, or if you're a woman of color in the tech industry and you want to connect with other women in underrepresented fields, you can join us at community.imperfectgenius.com. I'm not sure when this episode is going to get published because I've got a couple of guests that I'm trying to schedule. So I'm recording it without knowing exactly when I'm going to publish this episode. So I can't say what the upcoming events are. Just keep an eye on imperfectgenius.com. If you go to, I'm trying to think, like if for new courses, it's just courses. I think I need to create an events link on my website so that for people like networking and stuff like that, so people can see when those are upcoming. So I'll just say, keep an eye on imperfectgenius.com for other news. Or, speaking of, if you head over there, you go to subscribe.imperfectgenius.com and you can subscribe to our newsletter. And then that's another way that you can stay up to date on what's going on and upcoming events and things like that. That's a better way, actually. Again, that's subscribe.imperfectgenius.com. That's a better way. Until next time, this is Rachel Foster reminding you that while your journey may not be flawless, it can be phenomenal.